Hello, good morning everybody. I hope we're all okay and not too disappointed about last night. We've got a big couple of days ahead of us, so if you are, quit it, it's finished. 2 more years next time. Okay, so I'd like to start by saying thank you very much to Aid and all of the team at GreenTV actually. So we're delighted to partner with them once again on the EV Summit. This is an event and a partnership that's really, really important to us at Auto Trader, and we're acutely aware of our responsibility as the UK's largest auto marketplace and how we can use the influence that we have as 11 million visitors research their next car with us every single month. There's plenty of work for us to do at Auto Trader, but it's still really a priority that we'll build on over the next couple of years. And this year does feel like a pivotal year in the UK's transition and a great time to reflect on progress that we've all made so far, to assess what's gone well and then how we might accelerate it. So let's look back. Registrations of new electric cars are growing year on year. That's good news. Year to date, we're halfway through the year now, year to date, the end of June. We're 14,000 units. We're 9% ahead of 2023, as you can see on the screen here. June was a good month. It saw electric cars take a healthy 19% of all new car sales. It's not a record by any means, but it's a good number. It's a good month. And you can see, though, that the pace of growth has slowed a bit into 2024. The lines on the chart are a lot closer over the last couple of years than they used to be. But it's an increase nevertheless. But let us remember that there is a big job to do, and that's why I think about this year as being really important and next year as being really important, because we're at 16.6% penetration of new car sales in the UK, and it's been hovering around the mid-teens for quite a while now. In 2028, we need to be at 52%. There are success stories, of course, notably in the fleet sector. Right now, 3 in 4 electric car sales go to fleet. Fleet is 20% electric. The salary sacrifice scheme has done a really good job for drivers who can access it. Motability registrations are now about 20% electric. So fleet is very much driving EV adoption today, and it continues to do so. Good news. Fleet is under pressure. If there's anyone from a leasing company in the room, then you'll be telling us, of course, that there is some pressure. It's quite difficult, but still making progress. On retail, though, just 8% of retail sales are electric, and that's where we need to make the progress. On Auto Trader, there's some data here where you can see that interest in new electric cars has been flat for about 2 years. It peaked in the summer of 2022 as fuel prices spiked post-Ukraine, then fell off into 2023, coinciding with the effects of the mini-budget. Hopefully we're well past all of that. But interest has been flat for a couple of years. So with interest flat among the general public, but we need a big increase, of course, we do think we're at a really critical point. Now the good news is that 34% of people would consider electric for their next car. Now, drivers typically keep their car for 3 to 4 years, which means that there's a sizable opportunity to persuade a third of car buyers over the next few years. The people who are considering next time need to be sure next time. And that's our window. We need to get these people to switch next time round to give us that best chance of hitting the 52%. Because if we fail to persuade them, we're going to really struggle to get there. So let me quickly look at what's in the way. First up, these are the barriers with which we're all pretty familiar. These numbers were taken from April of this year. We survey this kind of thing all the time. And our old friends upfront cost and public charging, of course, are still the main barriers for people. People don't understand running costs. That, of course, is a major benefit of electric car ownership, and they still don't understand it. A quarter of them cite the inability to charge at home. The only thing we can do about that is to provide those people with the means to charge elsewhere, and I will come to that in just a moment. And lastly, on the end there, the impact of that media negativity is a barrier for 1 in 5 people. And the proportion of people who have heard and believe those stories is quite surprising for us. A few months ago, we asked a couple of thousand people whether they'd heard of various stories about electric cars and whether they believed them, crucially. And as you can see, too many people believe stuff that isn't true. Let's be fair, one of them, insurance costs, is an issue. But the perception of too many people is incorrect. People need reasons to move, but what they've been hearing is reasons not to move. But we are making progress on the barriers. Remembering that the next couple of years are so important, if we don't remove the barriers before those thinking about an EV change their car, we could lose them until the change after that, which will be in or after 2030. That's a simple takeout. We're approaching a point at which people need to change, because if they don't this time round, they're delayed by another 3 or 4 years. We don't want the transition, of course, to just find its way. Electric car adoption is going to be different to other technologies. We hear about S-curves and things like that. Cars will be different because people buy cars every 3 to 4 years, not every 12 months like maybe a mobile phone, so the time really has to be now. Let's just look at the progress we're making on those barriers. On cost, there is still a price gap of 31%, but manufacturers are discounting against those list prices. When we get past the price lists and analyse those discounted prices, we find that 3/4 of electric cars have seen prices fall year on year. 1 in 6 electric cars for sale on our site is attracting a discount of 15% or more. That's twice as many as for petrol. But these discounts, they're tactical. They're not continuous. These are often unprecedented amounts of money that might not be sustainable. Until battery costs come down and EVs are cheaper to make, the market will be volatile. But the analysis does show that price parity does sell electric cars. People buy them when they're priced right. The used market shows the same thing. In little over a year, the price of a used Tesla Model 3 fell below the equivalent 3 Series, from being £22,000 higher than that 3 Series in August 2022. The Model 3 had fallen to be £820 cheaper a year later, November 2023. For the second half of last year, you may not know this, electric cars were the fastest selling fuel type of any used car. Price drops like that one stimulated an immediate surge in interest. So the analysis shows an electric market that's extremely sensitive to price, and we are slowly getting there. More will be needed to trigger our opportunity in the next couple of years. The next challenge, of course, remains public charging. We know that there are more than 60,000 chargers. We know that that's increasing all the time. Progress has been excellent. But the conversation always seems to come back to how many is enough and how many do we need. Our view is that we're only really in phase 1 in the charging conversation. Public charging needs to do a job for those early adopters. And the data, actually, that you can see on the screen tells us that for current drivers, provision is fine. Provision's fine. 82% of EV owners charge at home. Only 43% told us that they'd used public charging infrastructure in the last month, 20% in the last 3 months. So most electric driving is done from a home charger, with the odd trip needing a motorway or supermarket top-up. Lastly, we asked EV owners if they'd experienced any issues. These are drivers of electric cars, and a good number have had problems with public charging. We know from the previous slide that they don't really use it with great frequency, but when they do, up to 1/4 of them have had problems, which is fine, because we need to know what's in the way in order to overcome it and to beat it. If we understand the truth and we address the bigger challenges, we can clear the way for more people to switch. Those people who are going to consider for their next car need this stuff to be fixed. And as we move into phase 2, there'll be a lot more of them needing to use public charging, but still for top-up probably. So let's fix these issues. By the time phase 3 or phase 4 arrives, with a need to cater for drivers who can't charge at home, we'll need a network that does the job for every type of driving, but we think that's a few years away yet. So what do we do? Now, there are some practical things that we would be looking for. Policy asks that we discuss with partners, many of you are in the room, trade associations. Clearly now is a really good time to push for progress and get our list in front of new ministers. To speed things up and make it happen, we need to give people reasons to switch, of course, this time round, not to wait and see if they do it next time. But today, with all those policy things out of the way, there's just a simple thing we'd like to ask of you, because lots of us in the room can make a difference. As well as asking for interventions or changes to legislation or more regulation, because there is a really big need to tell the story differently. There's an enormous group of people who really should be driving an electric car in the next few years. We don't need to worry about the laggards just yet. The 20% of people who aren't interested and refuse, in the end, they will have to buy one, that's fine, but they're a long, long way off. Right now, our opportunity and our risk is people who could. So our job is to move them from could or should to will. People like them are already doing it. They've told us what they need to know, so let's organise ourselves to help them out. Let's stop talking about the cars and the charging separately. Let's talk about them together. When someone visits a website or a showroom to learn about a car, let's tell them about charging at the same time. If they got that far, it's still going to be a doubt that they've got. But let's also talk about how home charging and public charging work together. Let's talk about convenience. Let's talk about never again visiting a petrol station. Interestingly, a third of women who drive electric cars said that was the best thing about their car, not visiting a petrol station. Let's talk about good, nice, warm benefits. The enjoyment of a quiet drive, how easy it is to use public charge points when you need to. Let's reassure them about charge point reliability, about how waiting times have dropped, up times have increased. Let's tell them about battery health, running costs and savings. Many of these need data. So if you have it, this is the plea. Open it up, share it with everybody, please. Because it's a major focus for us at Auto Trader and the partners that we've already spoken to. Some of you are in the room. There are 1 million views of new electric cars on Auto Trader every single month. And we want the people looking at those cars, considering for their next car, to access the information that they need to go on and buy. And we need your data to do that. So we'd love to talk to more of you, a more combined, consolidated story about electric cars, and why now, or the next one, is going to be electric and not the car after that. So hit us up and let's make it happen. Thank you.